So welcome on this HPE update session today about Simplivity. So also the last months, I think it's 4 months ago that we had our last update session. And so meanwhile, there were some exciting announcements, things that I need to share with you. On the hardware and on the software side. So if I compare with the presentation from 4 months ago, I did my introduction about what is hyperconvergence and so on. So I removed this one from this presentation. I'm just going to give you a really quick overview of what is Simplivity, and then we dive directly in the details about all the updates that were announced in the last weeks and months. So really quickly, what is Simplivity? It's a hyper-converged solution. It's an all-in-one system. It's hardware and then a lot of software inside that gives you another experience of how you're going to manage your VMware environment, your virtual machines on your compute and your storage infrastructure. We get global unified management if you have multiple sites, small, medium, big environments. The VM, the virtual machine, is the center of what we're gonna manage. Okay, we're gonna try to hide as much as possible the underlying hardware, the servers, the storage, the network. Also to install it and to maintain it, it should be easier, because since it's a one single system, you will get from HPE the files to update directly the firmware of the hardware, the hypervisor, and then also the Simplivity software itself. And of course, just like with all the other HPE products, we have as well Infosight, and we're going to talk about Infosight because there are some updates as well about the integration of Simplivity with Infosight and vice versa. So that's that global intelligence. Hyperconverge means is that we're going to converge multiple functions in one solution. So if we're going to take a look at the hardware of the server, the storage networking, that will be simplified, then the storage layer itself, the backup, the data protection. We have efficiency like deduplication and compression in there. Thanks to the deduplication and compression, we're doing WAN optimization if we have multiple sites. It's an all-flash solution, so we guarantee performance. There's a lot of guarantees in there. If you want to know more about the guarantee program, just take a look at the previous Simplivity update session. But so it's all those functions that will be converged in a Simplivity solution. So that Simplivity solution, it's just 2 DL325s or 2 DL380s with a lot of Simplivity software in there on top of that VMware hypervisor. And you really don't need to be a specialist to manage and to maintain that infrastructure once that you have set it up. Once there's a lot of online training available, and otherwise just call me. I have gear in my own environment and I can showcase it to you. Yeah. About that ease of management, I just put this picture in there, or you call me for a live demo. Of course, I do this multiple times in a week. I have no problem with that. But to give you an idea, the management of that complete infrastructure, including your backup, including your storage, including your virtualized networking, is all done through vCenter. So if you know VMware vCenter, you can manage Simplivity. And the only thing that you need to do is right click. So when you right click on a virtual machine, you will get that pop-up menu. And then at the bottom, you will see all Simplivity actions. And then you see the possible actions like cloning a VM, moving a VM, making a backup, or doing a restore of a VM. Well, that's what you see in that pop-up menu. When you click on a cluster or on a host, well, at that moment, you can create a data store. You can look for backups of one or multiple machines to restore an entire virtual machine, or to restore files or directories. Assigning a VM to a backup policy. A backup policy is, by the way, a backup job. We call it a backup policy. So you can manage that all through those right clicks. That's the only thing that you need to be aware of. I told you about the efficiency. It's an efficient platform. So it's doing deduplication, for instance. It's always on. It's not that there are thumbs and knobs that you need to tweak around. It's all done automatically for you. But so what does that mean? If you have the more VMs that you have on there, the better the efficiency you will get, because we will get that duplicate data. And one of the things that Simplivity is not doing is writing duplicate data on your backend storage. It's only writing unique data, and this is why we get those really great efficiency numbers. Definitely when you're gonna make backups as well on there. This is the key story in my demo. So if you didn't see my demo yet, well, please contact me and I will show you that demo. You're gonna love that product. Okay. Now, thanks to that duplication with the backup integration in there, I have multiple use cases with customers, you here in Belgium, who have multiple sites. What do we do is that on those remote sites, it can be a production site. If it's a production site, we're going to install 2 nodes for high availability, because then it switches over. One node, or I must say 50% of the nodes in that cluster can fail, can go down. Even then we provide the performance, we provide that every virtual machine keeps on running. That's that high availability. But if you have multiple sites or multiple edges, you can connect in a very efficient way all those sites together. And so I have a transport company, offices in Brussels, but there are a lot in the port of Antwerp as well. Well, Antwerp is backup from Brussels, and Brussels is backup from Antwerp. Yeah, and the more sites that you have, the more backups that you can store everywhere, always through a right click in a very efficient way. And thanks to the deduplication, we don't need that WAN optimization like, for instance, Veeam Enterprise Plus that provides that one awareness, one effectiveness. Well, here it is by default integrated. Last year, they extended the data protection as well. Why? One of the key features is we can restore that file server of a few terabytes. We can restore it in less than a minute. And it's a backup from 10 minutes ago or 20 or 30 minutes ago. But the last backup we can restore in a very fast, efficient way. Now, why is that? Because the backup is stored inside the Simplivity solution. Now, of course, it's SSDs. It has a certain price per gigabyte. This is why HPE added last year to move the data, also the backups, also outside the Simplivity platform to a cheaper platform for a price per gigabyte, of course. Well, that's store once. So last year they added that possibility to store a backup of a virtual machine, also from Simplivity outside on store once. Also, store once is known for that efficiency, for that deduplication in there. And so now, because initially it was only through CLI, well, now it's all integrated in the user interface as well. And also, this is something that I can show to you. And then somewhere last year in the summer time frame, they added then that next step in data protection as well, which was called cloud volume. So for those customers who want to make a backup in the cloud, really, this is for long-term retention. So for those customers who really needs to keep their backups for many years, we're not going to keep them on those SSDs inside Simplivity. We're going to put them, for instance, on store once, or even on cloud volumes, which is in the public cloud where you pay per terabyte. And also there now, there is that integration from within the Simplivity UI. And Very important. You will see now with the update that is announced now, that is almost there. It will be available this month. You will see that there is even more flexibility, more possibilities to move that data from that edge site to that core site, even maybe to a colo outside your own data center, and then to a cloud. So you will see that there is more and more flexibility. And I've seen the roadmap. It's not finished. There's even more coming on the long run. But I'll show you what is announced today. And then the final one is that it's until now very focused on virtual machines, but we see more and more that also containers are coming now, where virtualization was a software-defined server. Well, now we see more and more applications as well in one of those clouds based on Docker and Kubernetes, based on containers. Well, know that it's perfectly possible, that it's very easy to store the data of your containers as well on a Simplivity solution. So that software-defined storage function inside Simplivity is ideal as well now to store your persistent data from your containers, like for instance with Kubernetes. Note that this is possible as well. So you can put any kind of data, any kind of application, or any kind of server you can store in an efficient way on Simplivity. And this is all by default integrated with now HPE Ezmeral is the software pillar of HPE. And so we have that nice integration in there is through a CSI driver, the Container Storage Interface driver. So if you're into containers and Docker and Kubernetes, or your customers, they have questions about it, hey, all the information is nicely available. Now, that's a really quick introduction. If you want to have more details about Simplivity, I have my master presentation, my deck that I showed in the previous presentation, the previous update somewhere in September. So go take a look to that recording, and otherwise, yeah, you know where to find me. Now, what is announced? Watch out. So this is official and not official. Now you're all HPE partners, so you're good to go with that. So it was announced last month, so in December somewhere, that there's a new software version called version 4.1.1, Simplivity software, and also on the hardware. So that's what we're gonna take a look at. Now, before we go in there, also a second thing that I want to share really quickly with you. I'm not going to dive into the details because when was it? I think last week or 2 weeks ago, we did an update session about cloud physics. A tool that was very popular in the last years that we were using together to do an assessment of the existing environment is called Lanomark. Well, Lanomark is end of life since October last year. And so this is where HPE said, we're going to transition to a tool called Cloud Physics. They already had a tool called SAF, Storage Assessment Foundry. But last summer, they acquired a company called Cloud Physics. And now finally, it is completely integrated. The procedures are there. I have multiple partners today already who registered to get access to Cloud Physics portal. I have many assessments running, also myself, for end customers, for you to run that assessment. If you want to know all the details about Cloud Physics, how does it look like, how to get started, how easy it is to set up and to get data out of there, please go take a look. For those who didn't attend the previous webinar about Cloud Physics, the recording is there. I can send you the presentation as well. But most important thing that you need to be aware of is we're going to install an observer. It's not like with Lanomark an executable. It's a little virtual machine. It's a little V app that you're going to deploy inside your VMware environment. It takes less than 5 minutes. Then you need to connect it to your vCenter because he needs to be able to collect all that performance data. Of course, it takes less than 5 minutes to set it up. And then after 15 minutes, it's more something like an hour, 30 minutes up to an hour. But after 30 minutes, you will get that data, and then you leave it run for 7 days. And after 7 days, you get actionable intelligence. So you get recommendations of how good or how bad is your environment configured. And I can last week I had a contact with one of the partners who installed Cloud Physics in combination with Infosight, and they love it. They saw things that they were not aware of, badly configured virtual machines, where Cloud Physics and then Infosight on the long run will give you recommendations on there. So the 3 steps that you need to do, we will help you with that if it's needed. So you're going to send an email when you're going to register as a partner. It doesn't cost you anything. So you're going to register, you're going to send an email to your customer. He will then, or you will do it, deploy that V app. And then all that data will be collected and sent in a secure way to the Cloud Physics database. This is how it looks like. It's a little tiny VM. It doesn't need that many resources. There is no performance impact on your VMware as such. And then what you will get is there are 2 views. There is a view for the customer, the end customer. Watch out, this is then the end customer, not your view. So the end customer will get some very good insights on his environment. He will get that right sizing simulator to show you how good or how bad it's configured. But the real advantage for you is that for you, being the HP partner, you will get that trusted advisor view. You get a lot of card decks. These are called card decks, and there are plenty of them on troubleshooting, on performance, on space utilization, on the health check environment. He knows that that VMware is running on a Dell Power Edge. I don't know which server, which is supported or not supported. It's in guarantee or outside guarantee and so on. All these things will be shown in Cloud Physics. And then, yeah, like I said, you have all those card decks to become really a trusted advisor. Yeah, you will get a lot of insights on that environment, because of course you don't want to migrate badly configured old stuff to a really nice new environment, of course. Okay, now why do I show this? Well, because it's very important. Cloud Physics makes our life easier to do a sizing for Simplivity, for instance, for hyper-converged. Why is that? If you go, yeah, these are all screenshots that I share with you. You will get a copy of the presentation anyway, so it gives you an idea about all the information about storage analytics, about VM right sizing, that he's telling you he has too much CPUs or not enough memory, and so on and so on. The VMware tools that are outdated, you're running an operating system that is not supported anymore, and so on and so on. So there's a lot of information that you will see in here, besides all the typical latency, IOPS, bandwidth graphs as well, in short time and on the long run of your infrastructure. Now, why do I mention this here really quickly? Because like I said, more details, take a look at the other webinar about Cloud Physics. We dive much deeper into details there. But why it is a very useful tool is one of the card decks in there is that HPE Hdi Sizing Analysis. Okay, and when you click on there, you get this information. And this is the information that we got from Lana Mark as well. Now we get much more insights with Cloud Physics, but this is the information to make that sizing about CPU and memory and IOPS and latency and storage needs. Now, why is it a really cool thing? Well, first time you have to look for it, but at the top right here, you see that little icon with that light blue square on there. Well, when you click on there, you get this pop-up. And with this pop-up, with these 6 numbers, you can do the sizing for Simplivity. You go to the Simplivity online sizer, or you make a screen capture and you send this to me or to the HPE team, Wim, Christophe, Steven, and so on, and we can make you a sizing. You need 4 nodes, 6 nodes, 2 nodes, DL325 with how many memory, and so on and so on. The only thing that you need to give us on top of this one is about network connectivity. Do you need RJ45 or SFP plus connectivity? And how many warranty, how many support do you need? 3, 4, 5 years, next business day, 24/7, and so on. But with this information, it's very easy to do that sizing for Simplivity. Okay, so that's it for cloud physics, but be aware, it's a really cool tool. It's easy to set up. I already had one case where the end customer deployed that virtual machine. It's that easy to follow. It's nicely documented. The videos are available as well. Okay, but so this is not about cloud physics. This is about Simplivity. So let's take a look at the real information that you need. So the first one is about software, and then we're going to take a look at the hardware as well. But so very important is that, last month, HPE announced Simplivity 4.1.1. So today we're running on 4.1.0 update 1 that was launched, that was made available last summer, and that was the long-awaited one for VMware 7 support. Well, today we go further. I must say that normally 4.1.1 had to be available already in December, but then there was a last minute bug that was found in VMware in combination with Simplivity. And then there is that also that log4s log4shell issue, and this is why it will be released now. Every day I am going to the HP support website. It should be there one of the days, definitely in January. So 4.1.1 will be there. Most important is plenty of new things that are in there, and so that's what we're gonna take a look at. So that's what I'm gonna share with you. You will see that on multiple levels, multiple things that are changed. First of all, on the data protection. So data protection is key in Simplivity. A lot of updates, a lot of functionality that is being added. I told you something about the Infosight integration. Until now, Infosight was rather basic. I know you cannot compare it with Nimble, where Infosight exists already for 11 years, but until now, Infosight integration was really capturing information, sending it, and then visualizing it. Now we have that streaming integration. So now that wellness gets updated much faster, and you have also possibilities for notifications and so on. So getting more things with Infosight, also about the lifecycle management. You will see that there are some more flexibility that is being added. There's something about security, and then some miscellaneous, some different minor updates that are added as well. Now, one important one, one thing that I wanted as well is somewhere last year, with some kind of a Simplivity update, one of the questions was that customer said, hey, I want to have an overview, a report of my backup status, because every 10 minutes we make a backup of your virtual machines, but are those backups okay? And are they stored locally, or are they stored in another cluster, or maybe on store once? And so last year, HPE added the functionality to create a backup report, but the I don't want to call it a disadvantage, but the limitation is that it was possible only to create that report on what we call a centrally managed federation. So you needed that MVA. It's a little virtual appliance that you needed to deploy. It takes just 5 minutes to set it up, but that MVA was there just for larger environments. But most of the customers that I see here, they have 2, 3, 4 nodes, while that MVA is for multiple vCenters, and then really more than 8 nodes in a cluster, for instance. So missed opportunity. Well, now I can tell you with 4.1.1, it is now possible to create that report, so you don't need that MVA anymore, that centrally managed federation. So now you will, with 4.1.1, you will be able to create that backup report also directly on those small non-centrally. So this is the peer managed federation. This is the one that you are using, by the way. All those simplivities out there in Belgium are peer managed. So you're managing them directly from the OVC. The OVC, it's the legacy name OmniStack Virtual Controller. By the way, from now on, you will see that that OVC OmniStack Virtual Controller legacy name will be replaced with an SVA. No, it's not a VSA, but an SVA, a Simplivity Virtual Appliance. So it's that little virtual machine that is running on your Simplivity node. Well, from that OVC, or now called SVA, from now on, from there, you will be able to create that report as well. Okay, so just a little addition, but yeah, it becomes usable at the end. By the way, don't expect fancy reports like in Veeam and so on. It's just a CSV file that shows you all your VMs with all the copies of every 10 minutes or every hour or something like that, and where they are stored. But at least now you get that easy overview, and then you can send it to your customer, and he can see if the backups are okay or not. Until now, I never heard about bad backups as such, because at the end they're just pointers in that database. Remember, this is for the storage, the backups on Simplivity itself. So you will see in a minute that we have a nice new integration with CloudBank as well. Well, because it's new, CloudBank, so external backup reports stored in the public cloud, are not there yet. That will be probably in 4.1.2 or 4.2.0. That will be probably in the next update. Okay, but this is a good thing already. If we take a look at that integration with that external storage, we have that integration with Store1, which is a disk-based backup appliance. And so this is what is already possible. So we have our virtual controller. It's doing that chunking and that hashing for the deduplication. And then we only gonna send unique data to Store1. We're going to send those hashes. Then Store1 says, I have that block of data, so you don't have to send it again. Oh, that's a new block of data, so please send that. So we have that optimized backup already. Yeah. What we didn't have is the optimized restore. Until now, he needs to send back all those blocks of data. Well, now you will see as well that with the new update, that now what we will do as well is that the restore from Store1 will now go much faster, because you see in the initial release, the restore process was not optimized. And so now what we will do is with the 4.1.1 update is that now also for a restore, when we request a restore of a virtual machine, we will ask the restore to Store1, but then we only gonna request the unique hashes. So now also the restore is also in an optimized way. Why is that? Well, of course, because this integration with that Catalyst API integration of Store1 is also used with the cloud. And you know, with the public cloud, that there are egress costs. You pay per terabyte that you get out of the cloud. And so this is why we needed this one as well. Another feature that is being added now is it's a Store1 feature as well, which is called Catalyst Copy. So you can copy your backup from one Store1 to another Store1, or from Store1 to the cloud, for instance, or if you have a multi-site edge setup. Well, at that moment now, it is possible also now from within Simplivity, you can use that the interface now to copy backups from one Store1 Catalyst store to yet another Catalyst store. This is also a feature that is possible, for instance, with Veeam. Well, now you can do it with Simplivity as well, those so-called copy backups to store once, but also, like I said, to cloud volumes. Cloud volumes is storage. It's per terabyte storage that you can get from HPE. And so now you will see in the upcoming slides that there's also integration with Cloud Bank. I know I'm not the biggest fan either of HPE marketing with all their names. Hold on, you will see in the upcoming months, there will be some changes on the HPE cloud storage as well, on all those naming that will be changed. It will become much more intuitive, let's say. But Cloud Bank, what is Cloud Bank? It's store once, but in the public cloud. So Cloud Bank is storage where you pay per terabyte that you can enable, but then at Amazon or Azure or Google or some others that are supported. So you're gonna deploy it yourself, that storage, while with Cloud Volumes, HPE is providing the storage themselves in their own data centers. But there is a Catalyst functionality behind it. And so the only thing that you need to do is create that connection to Cloud Volumes or to Cloud Bank. And now with that Catalyst copy job, you can move your backups from the local Simplivity to store once, and then to Cloud Volumes or to Cloud Bank. So you can choose yourself which storage target that you want to use. If it's on Azure or you prefer Amazon, AWS, for instance, well, you can enable Cloud Bank yourself on there. How does it look like? Well, just like with store once, it's called an external store. Well, now Cloud Volumes and Cloud Bank will be just an external store, just like with store once it is. And now you can copy a backup from your Simplivity to, for instance, to Cloud Bank. Now, of course, at that moment, all those stores needs to be registered, but that registration is fairly simple. It's again a right click on the federation level, and there you can register. You need the IP address and the unique DNS name, and then the username and password of those stores. It's nicely documented in the user guides. Another feature that was added in store once Catalyst, and there's a lot of people talking about this, a lot of also Veeam is heavily focusing on that one, is data immutability. Well, now store once supported already data immutability. Well, now it's also supported from within Simplivity to that store once Catalyst. Now, what is data immutability? Well, with the ransomwares today, I hope that everyone understands that a backup on a NAS share, that's not a good idea, because people are definitely, if that NAS share is integrated with your Active Directory, we have a lot of stories today already in Belgium where not only the live data got encrypted, but also the backup data that was encrypted or deleted, or they did really bad things with it. Okay, so this is where they put now an additional checkbox, data immutability, which means that once that you store that data, it's write once, but then read only to do restores, but you cannot delete that backup in any kind of way, that backup data, for a week or a month or something like that. So also the public cloud providers, they support that data immutability. You can store the data on there, but you cannot delete it afterwards for a specific period. Well, so now data immutability is also now available. And why is that? Well, for compliancy, of course. So there are quite some benefits in there. For instance, there's no impact on your in-progress backups and copies and so on. Now, how does it look like? I found some screenshots of how it will look like. The most important thing is that, hey, we have it. So I am waiting now as well until I have the version 4.1.1, and so I can play with it. But I think it's a really good feature to compare with other existing data protection solutions. So when you're gonna create a store, it's on store once, because at the end it's a functionality from store once. you're going to create a so-called catalyst store. Well, on that catalyst store in the security settings, you will see now here that that checkbox, that button where you can enable or disable data immutability, and then you can select the number of days that that data cannot be deleted. Okay, so it's per catalyst store. So you can create a store with immutability and a store without immutability if you would like that. And it is this catalyst store then that you're going to register in your Simplivity. Now, there are some parameters here that you need to be aware of. Of course, if that data immutability is disabled, well, at that moment, yes, you can delete that backup, of course. It can be a manual delete or the backup that expired after a certain number of days. Now, if you enable that checkbox here from data immutability, at that moment, if you're going to delete manually, you or maybe those ransomware guys, you cannot delete that data until the retention time got expired, so that the date is beyond that retention time, of course. Now, also delete due to expiry, even then from within the backup application, even then it is possible to say, hold on, we need, for instance, 24 more before you can actually delete that once, just to guarantee that your backup data cannot be deleted by those ransomware people, for instance. So also that is coming with 4.1.1 nice function. Some minor, smaller things. Also, when you make a backup to external storage backups and so on, in some kind of way, there were some options where you could resume backups. For instance, when there was an interruption in the network connection, if that store once was really behind a internet secure VPN connection and so on, because that was supported recently as well. So now you can resume backups when those large backups were disrupted for some kind of way. Well, at that moment, you don't have to start all over again. This can be handy when you have really large backups that needs to be sent to somewhere else. So it's using now those checkpoints in between, and so we can say, okay, those hashes, that data was already sent, so we're not gonna send it again. Some other functions were added, like searching in external backups. Initially, it was only through CLI. That is now also possible in the user interface. And there are also some other filter options that will be available as well for those external backups. You will see that in a table. I have somewhere in the presentation a table with a comparison, what you can do in the UI and in the CLI, for instance. Also, for those who are working with CLI, because yes, you can do a lot of things through CLI. You just have to connect with PuTTY on your virtual controller on that SVA or that OVC. And so there is a lot of SVT commands. There are even new commands now, so that you can look for more information through CLI for those who prefer CLI and not using the user interface. So there it goes. This is the table, the comparison table that I was talking about, that I was referring to. So you can see that initially you will see in the VMware UI that not everything was possible. Well, now today I see a lot of yeses, and normally on the long run, normally CLI then through a RESTful API, and in the UI, the idea is that you can do everything on all of them. Okay. Now, I told you something, I mentioned something about Cloud Bank already. So like I said, it's really a long-term retention of your data in the public cloud. It's really a cloud archive through Store Once. Now, very important here to know is that to use Cloud Bank, you need Store Once. With Cloud Volumes, that's different. With Cloud Volumes, HPE delivers that storage where you pay per terabyte. And then from Simplivity, you can go directly through to Cloud Volumes. Now with Cloud Bank comes together with Store Once. Okay, so you need Store Once, and then behind, when you buy a Store Once, by the way, there is a certain number of capacity that comes with Store Once that you can enable in Cloud Bank. But for Cloud Bank, you need Store Once. So this is what you're gonna do. You're gonna make a backup from Simplivity to your Store Once, and then from Store Once, you can go to that public cloud. Okay. How are you going to do that? Well, first of all, you need to enable Cloud Bank. And like I said, it supports Azure, it supports Amazon. You can put it on Scality as well for those really big customers who wants to have that S3 storage. So that's all possible. But like I said, this is for archiving long-term data retention. Now to manage it, it's done through the Simplivity user interface. So you will see then that Store Once Catalyst store locally in your environment, but now you will see also that Cloud Bank Catalyst store, for instance, on AWS. So you will register it as well inside your user interface. And then what we're going to do is we're going to do copy backups. We're going to copy the backups from your Store Once to Amazon or to Azure to Cloud Bank, for instance. So where are we going to use this? This is not your first copy, not even your second copy, but this is really the third copy, long-term archiving your non-active, your really cold data that you want to keep for years, for instance, right? So I have put some information in here. This is a really specific use case. Most of the Simplivity customers will not do this, but I got this question already from a customer that said, hey, I want to store, I need to keep my data for compliance reasons. I need to keep my backup data for 10 years. Well, for 10 years, yep, you can put it on Amazon, for instance, if you would. Like that. And so now this is now also integrated, supported with 411. So what you need to do at the end, just to give you an idea, we need to set up Store Once. You're going to create a Catalyst store. It's a dedupe Catalyst store on Store Once that we're going to register with my Simplivity. And then in Store Once, you need to create a so-called Catalyst Cloud Bank store. So that's a second store that you're going to create, but then that one is not stored on the local disks, but that data is stored on the public internet on an S3 bucket on Azure or AWS or any S3 compatible storage. And so at that moment, Simplivity will make a backup first to your Catalyst store. And then from that Catalyst store, we're going to copy that backup to that Cloud Bank store. And when you store that data on your Cloud Bank store, at that moment, that data is stored in an efficient way, of course, in that S3 compatible bucket. Now, for your user experience, of course, you're going to do this all through the Simplivity user interface. Okay, so it's Simplivity that will initiate that Catalyst copy from the Catalyst store, which is local storage, to that Cloud Bank store, and then the Cloud Bank store will send all that unique data. So watch out, this is only unique data that will be stored on that object store, on that S3 or that Azure cloud storage. Okay, now also for the restore, here they did a good thing. It's official, it's directly an optimized restore. We only gonna get the data that we need. It will be recovered from the object store in the Cloud Bank storage, and then you can recover it locally in your Simplivity environment as well, if you need that data from really a long time ago. Because of course the short-term retention data will be in Simplivity, the longer term will be in Catalyst, and then the archive will be in that public cloud, for instance. And all this is done through the Simplivity user interface. So this is how it looks like. You have your Catalyst stores, you have your Cloud Bank stores, and And then you will see that provider that you're gonna create. So there are multiple ones that are supported. This is, like I said, this is Store Once. I advise you as well to install the latest version of the Store Once appliance as well, of course. And then you can see here, this is nicely documented then of how many data that is sent, how many data that is stored locally and in the cloud. Okay, if you're interested, by the way, if there are people, if there are companies interested in this, know that I have a lot, because this is more Store Once related. I have a lot of presentations and videos, details about this. I can show it to you if you would like that. Of course, but I just put this information in the presentation. You will get a copy because, hey, maybe one day it could be interesting. Also, for those who are interested in CLI, there is that Simplivity SVT comment. And so you can see now those on-prem Store Once Catalyst stores, but now you can see also those cloud catalysts. And there are plenty of other comments that you could run as well. So here you can see as well a comparison here for the Cloud Bank integration. Well, most of the things can be done in CLI, but I am quite happy that from version 1, finally, everything can be done as well through the UI. The only thing that is not possible yet, that backup reporting that I was talking about, well, the backup reporting is working for your Store Once and your Simplivity backups, but not yet for Cloud Bank storage. So this is probably in the next update for the 2.0 in somewhere at the summer timeframe. Well, probably it will be added. So that's one of the only things that is not supported. Okay, now enough about data protection and cloud and so on. It's just that you are aware of this. Many other exciting features that are added. I think for your daily operations, that Infosight integration is very good, because initially now it was every 5 minutes, it was sending small updates, and every few hours it was uploading the configuration of your environment. So now, just like with Nimble, we have that streaming integration. So that means that now you can see the issues on the hardware and on the software directly, or almost directly in there. You don't have to wait minutes or hours anymore for that. Yeah, so it works with signatures, and all these signature patterns will be added, will be created now, and there's more and more information from your hardware and software that will be put in there and then being sent back home. Yeah, so the first signature hit reported is displayed on the portal immediately, and then it's only when there's a change that it will be uploaded, and otherwise when the same signature, when the issue is not changed at that moment, it will be sent. This is, by the way, the same as Nimble and the other storage platforms are working. Now, why is this? Because of the alerting. The idea is now, the next step is that with Infosight as well, that also support cases can be created now automatically through Infosight. A second thing that I heard very often was, hey, can I be notified that there is something happening? Just like with, for instance, a Nimble or an Alletra or a Primera array. Well, now what you can do is, now in the Infosight portal, for missing heartbeats, if there's a problem with the internet connection, or if there's a hardware failure at that moment, you can subscribe through email. From my Nimble array, I get an email, I get a pop-up on my smartphone because I have the app. So I know that there is an issue. Well, now you can do the same thing with Simplivity as well. Okay, so well, this is some kind of an example of an email at that moment that you will receive, that there is, for instance, a bad SSD or a bad disk in there. What you need to do for that, you have to go to Infosight, and then at the top right, you have that option here with Manage Subscriptions. Okay, so you have to go to the hosts tab, and there you can subscribe for email notifications. So you have to put your email address in there, and then, for instance, that heartbeat status, you have to toggle that button. Then there's a privacy page, and then when you go to the privacy page, you can also go under the settings of your Simplivity organization. You can also, under settings, you can manage your subscriptions over there as well. So as soon as 411 is there, Infosight is already ready for this. So once that I have that streaming wellness enabled at that moment, this is one of the first things that I will enable for all my Simplivities, for all my customers. Feel free to put my email address in there, because I want to be aware that there's a problem, yes or no. Other changes, other new things that were added, also about that during the deployment already, you will see that Infosight will be enabled by default, because this was added, when was it? I think 1.5 years ago, initially Infosight Integration was added, but you had to enable it yourself. Well, now also during the deployment of a Simplivity cluster, well, now you have that. It's an additional question in the deployment manager, where you can say, yep, I want to enable it, yes or no. That's during deployment. Of course, once that the cluster is deployed, when you go to your federation, also on the federation level, you can enable or disable this. Yeah. Something about lifecycle management. We have the deployment manager. We have also the upgrade manager. So for those who are doing already upgrades, how does it work? Well, you have to go to the support portal. You will download the Simplivity firmware. So it's like the SPP, the Service Pack for ProLiant, but it's a Service Pack for ProLiant specifically for Simplivity only. It's the DL380 or the DL325 or Apollo 2600. You will download that firmware of the hardware. You can download then VMware 7.02 or 03, whatever the latest version. They have quite some challenges these days, VMware, with very stable versions, but that's another discussion. And then we also have, of course, the Simplivity software itself, like for instance now 411. You download those files, you get the upgrade manager executable, you put those 3 files in there, and then you're going to do the update. But it was always coupled. Yeah, you had to update then that ESXi and that firmware, but now imagine that there is an intermediate release. I'm thinking now about VMware and also some firmware updates that needs to be done, maybe for the Log4j issues that we have these days. So this is why now, prior to 4.1, we had our ESXi, we had our firmware, and this was tightly integrated. Well, now you will see that it is possible from 4.1.1 on, that it is possible that it's a logical thing. It's how it is developed. But now you will be able independently to update firmware and ESXi software. Okay, so you don't have to wait for a new ESXi to update the firmware, and you don't have to wait for a new firmware to update your ESXi. So it's decoupled now. Okay. So you will see that we have now separate upgrade bundles. It's a new JSON file with all the catalog information in it. It's all that metadata that is now not linking to the other. So those dependencies are not looking for the other anymore. So now the upgrade manager will be more flexible finally to do those updates. Now, thanks to this, also they made some announcements as well on performance, so that also the performance is going better because it's more in a staged way, and also the requirements for host reboots, if it's not necessary. Well, at that moment, too often, because those two were coupled, you had to reboot too often your server 1 or 2 times, and you know that every reboot takes some time. So this is why now the upgrade is also optimized. Some background information. They're using also digital signatures now on all those files. Why is that? Because yeah, we see that also the ransomware people are now downloading and compromising those files, and they are now delivering you compromised updates. So now also HPE says now, yeah, all our files we put extra signatures in there just to be sure that all the files are secure, that they come from HPE, and that you're good to have them installed to get the best upgrade experience, of course, and so that the time the time needed is also much less in there. Until now, I didn't have too much problems anyway with my upgrades so far, but apparently there was a need to optimize this process. Now, by the way, there's something about upgrades as well. It's not only Simplivity, you have to look at the best practices from VMware, of course, because for instance, ESXi 6.5, there are some steps that you need to follow. You cannot go directly to ESX7. There are some intermediate steps that you will need to follow as well. These are the best practices from VMware that you need to take a look at. Now, by the way, this is documented as well in the Interop guide. So the Interoperability guide is for me the Bible. It's a link. By the way, the Interoperability guide of 411 is already available. So all these steps that you need to follow are nicely documented in there. So my advice, please go take a look in there. Just don't hit that button and do the upgrade, because there's a lot of best practices from HPE, but also from VMware that you need to follow. And so this is, I put this as a reference in here, but like I said, always refer to that Interoperability guide. And by the way, I will put a direct link because there's a direct link available to the Interop guide. I will put this link on this slide as well for you. And on my blog, bitcon.be and hppedia.com, you will find that URL in there as well. Because like I said, there are some steps that you need to follow. So it's not supported by VMware to go directly from 6.5 to with 4.1.1, because by the way, 6.5 is not supported anyway, but 6.5, I know that there are some simplicities out there still with 6.5. So you will need to first update to 6.7. And then with 6.7, you will be good to run 4.1.1. And from that moment on, you can go from 6.7 to 7.0, of course. So it all depends of which versions that you have, of course. Yeah, but it's a nice table that is explained in the Interoperability guide with that step of which steps that are supported to do these updates. I just want to share the information with you. By the way, there is also a tech talk available with more in-depth information about this presentation. And like I said, it's all inside the Interoperability guide. So because it's these kind of tables that you will find in there of which versions that are supported, which build numbers that are supported. By the way, I got some questions now recently as well with Log4j issues that, hey, we need to wait. This is already 6 months that I'm waiting for 4.1.1 to update, and there are some security breaches in VMware. This is completely not true, of course. Know that it is possible, and this is nicely explained in the Interop guide. It is possible to update as long as the Interop guide, for instance, says 7.0 update 2, and there is C and D, and meanwhile there is an E or an F or a G. As long as it's update 2, you are allowed to install that update. So those minor VMware updates are allowed to be installed. If 7.0 update 4 is released one day, well, at that moment, you have to wait until it is tested and validated by HPE. And this will be reflected in the Interop guide. So always, like I said, it's the Bible. Go take a look in the Interop guide. And otherwise, there are Yammer pages. Yeah, so there are Yammer pages on the HPE forums where you can ask all these questions, and there are Simplivity people on there, and they will give you quite quickly answers on there of what is supported, yes or no. I am also on there, and you get really quick response. Okay, like I said, go take a look in that document. All those use cases, all those situations are in there. Hey, there you go. Like I just said, with 4.1.1 onwards, ESXi 6.5, we're not gonna deploy it anymore. So with all the new Simplivity systems that you will get today, from now on, it will be 6.7 or 7.0. Okay, good. Almost through from the software point of view. So let's take a look at the hardware, but there were some minor things here about security. Know that in the backend, I just want to share it with you. They have put new SSL certificates in there as well. And also for TLS, the transport layer security, also there, HP decided to put it at least to version 1.2 or higher, because 1.1 and 1.0, there are some challenges with it on the security level. So HPE TLS 1.1 and below is deprecated within Simplivity. Now you don't have to do anything with that. When you do the update, this is done automatically for you. For some companies who are using NSX-T, which is software-defined networking inside VMware, will now know that also NSX-T managed switches has now better integration support with 4.1.1 on as well. It worked, but it wasn't supported well. Now it's also supported. And then the final thing, also Rbac, role-based access control. So now Rbac policies are available as well for Simplivity. So what you can do is, for instance, through the RESTful API, you can say that user A can do this on that Simplivity, but user B cannot do this on another node or another cluster. Or this is, for instance, this just to Rbac is used for to avoid that everybody is logging on with an administrator account. And then something happens. Who did this? Yeah, the administrator. So this is where we're going to say, okay, you have you and you and you have named accounts. And so now we had the UI integration already, because there is, by the way, Active Directory integration and LDAP integration. But now also in the RESTful API, you can use those group role mappings and who can do what, for instance. Okay. So that's it on the software side with the 4.1.1 update. Like I said, if you want to know more backend information explained by the developers, there's a tech talk available. When you go to techpro.hpe.com, you can find all those tech talks in there with more information, or you can go to the Yammer pages, because also there you can find, or you can ask more questions. Okay. Now, second part is not only a software update, but also a hardware update. Now, what about the hardware update? I added an updated product portfolio picture in here. So we have the 380, which is now end of life. The legacy 380, I call it, is the one with the accelerator card. Okay. I just leave it on there for existing customers with existing models who wants to do an extension. But there is one reason why the 380 was on there, and this is now solved with something that you will see in the upcoming slides. So now really soon that 380 will indeed disappear. So today the reference model is the 380G, the software optimized model without that accelerator card. In the previous session, I told you that there was an update on that one with 24 SSDs. Yes, so we have now from really extra small to extra large, we have those nodes in there. We still have the hybrid nodes, but now the new thing today that is announced is that the Simplivity 325, and we have quite of them here in Belgium, for the smaller environments, very cost efficient, cost effective, very performant with those AMD CPUs up to 64 cores. Very performant in a good price point. Well, that Simplivity 325 is end of life. Why is that? Yeah, because AMD stopped producing those CPUs, which were on there. Yeah, because now AMD has those new EPIC third generation CPUs. What was it? Rome or Milan? It's one of those Italian cities. Not so important, but so there's a next generation of CPUs released by AMD. And so now this is the new model that is announced is the Gen 10 Plus V2. Now, besides a new CPU, Gen 10 Plus, very important there to know is that it's the model now with the new PCIe Generation 4. So now it's faster anyway because we have more bandwidth to memory from CPU to memory and to those PCIe buses. So it's a performance upgrade by default thanks to PCIe 4 and those new CPUs. Now, this is quite important. So from now on, Gen 10 325 end of life and is replaced with Gen 10 Plus V2. I will get directly a question. Hey, Bart, we have existing customers with 325s, 2 nodes. They started with 2 nodes. So now I need a third node. He calls you next year and he says, I need a third node. I need to grow that cluster. Is that possible? Yes, of course it is possible. It is supported to have Gen 10 and then Gen 10 Plus V2 nodes in the same cluster. The same rules apply with the 380G and even with the 380. So now today, customers with 380s, I have already an existing customer today in Belgium who added 380Gs in there. There are some rules that you need to follow from capacity standpoint, okay, that the capacity of those nodes is a little bit the same. Yeah, well, but besides that, it is nicely documented. Yes, it is supported to put a Gen 10 Plus V2 in combination with the 325, of course. As long as you're not mixing Intel and AMD in the cluster, you are good to go. Now, by the way, because I have pictures about that new platform, it's a new hardware platform, Gen 10 Plus V2. And so initially, in the initial 325, we had 2 models, extra small and small, I called it, with 4 and 6 SSDs in there, with their specific raw capacity of 4.6 and 7.5 TB. Well, now, thanks to the new hardware platform, we also have a model now with 8 SSDs. So now we also have a 10 TB model, just like with the 380G. Okay, so to me, it becomes even more interesting because now we can deliver more capacity in a 2-node cluster in there as well. Okay. So yeah, coming soon, available. It should be available. We can see it already in OCA. The only challenge today is availability of SSDs, but this is another discussion about supply constraints. But we have the part numbers, we have the pricing, so the model as such can be created. I added some details in there for you, quick specs information. So we have the 4, 6, and now also the 8 SSD model in there. So it's software optimized. And with that 3rd generation of AMD CPUs, like I just told you, minimum is 256 GB, maximum 2 TB of RAM with 64 cores. For an entry-level solution, this is a bloody fast machine. You can run a lot of virtual machines on there. As you can see, those models will be shipped by default with 4.11, nothing below. So you need 4.11 here. And then 6.7 and 7.0. So 6.5 not supported here anymore. Some additional technical details. This is really for the techies who are interested of how the data layout is done and what is supported. It's still the same, by the way, with 4.11, 60 nodes in the cluster and 96 nodes per federation. Important to know that storage expansions are not supported with the AMD model, because this is the last thing that I'm going to explain now, or one of the last things in this presentation is about storage expansion. Okay, the 380, the classic model with the accelerator card, supported. It was supported to do a storage expansion from a small to medium and from medium to large by adding SSDs. And watch out, it's not only adding SSDs, it's also changing the license, so it had a certain cost. But it was supported in there. And you will see in a minute now that finally for the 380G, it is also supported as well. Coming slides, be patient a little bit. But I want to tell you here now with the Simplivity 325 today, know that it's not supported. That doesn't mean that it's not working. It works. It's only that HPE doesn't support it because it's a procedure executed by HPE support, by the Point Next team, who will do this for you. Okay, the procedure is not that simple as it looks like. But maybe an important thing, why to choose for 380G, it's for that customer that wants to do a storage expansion just by adding local storage and not by adding nodes in a cluster. By adding nodes in a cluster, yes, you know that there is a license impact. For instance, you need a VMware license. Okay, now watch out. This is today. I expect that probably, I don't know when, later this year, next year, I expect that maybe one day it will be supported, because technically it is possible, but this is a HPE Point Next HPE support that will decide on this to create those procedures and so on. Now with the software-defined models, you know that for the SVA, the OVC, remember, the Simplivity Virtual Appliance, or the legacy OmniStack virtual controller, you need some CPU and some memory reservations. Well, here you can see how many vCPUs and how many memory that we will take into account. So when we make a sizing for Simplivity, you have to tell us, thanks to cloud physics, you have to tell us how many CPU and memory that you need. And then with the sizing, we add those reservations on top of it to create the most ideal sizing. Or you use the online sizer, of course. Okay. More technical information, because this information is available as well on all those other notes from my previous sessions. This is for the techies. And then this is the hardware layout, the drive slotting. So in this model as well, we don't have those two disks at the back for the operating system. So now there are two boot drives. This is where ESXi is installed, two drives in RAID 1 with the operating system and with the Simplivity software. And now we have 4, 6, or 8 SSDs that can be installed, because in the new DL325 Gen 10 Plus, yes, we can install 10 drives in there, because today no one is installing a CD DVD drive in there anymore anyway. And so we have that extra small and medium model in here. Okay, so a comparison, what is changed? It's the generation of CPU, of course. It was a flex lob card in Gen 10, now it's an OCP. OCP, it's an open standard. It's an open compute platform standard card that you can install in there. So now we have a larger model available with 8 SSDs. And like I said, very important, Gen 10 Plus is there because of PCIe 4.0. So more bandwidth, more performance inside the compute platform. Okay. And so, like I said, hey, finally it is there, officially supported. So there is a procedure now for the storage expansion on Simplivity 380G. Now watch out. You always need that pre-approval. So we can help you with that. So if you have an existing customer that wants to do an expansion, we need to take a look at what is installed there on the hardware and on the software side. And then we're gonna request an approval, and then we can do the quoting stage for those nodes. So it's not that it's so easy. Hey, we're gonna order it, and then 2 hours later it is done. So there is a procedure that you need to follow. Okay. Now I see a question already on this one specifically in the Q&A. Expansion on the 380 with the accelerator card is possible. Well, that was one of the things that was possible. Yeah, and that was why the 380 was still on the roadmap, because 380 with the accelerator card by default always had, at least for many years, storage expansion was supported with the accelerator card, the classic models, how we call it. Yes, and so this is why now it's still there on the roadmap, but now finally we have storage expansion on the 380G. So I expect, yeah, somewhere before the end of the year, that 380 classic model will be gone anyway from our slides, because everybody was waiting for the 380G. And so now finally it's there. Now, what is supported? Not everything is supported, but to go from 6 to 8, from 8 to 12, and 12 to 16. No, we're not going to the 24 model because that's a specific use case model. But so we have here those options by adding 2 or 4 drives in there. Now, watch out if you're going to take a look at the price. The price is much higher than the price of 2 or 4 SSDs, because if you remember well, or you should know, that Simplivity pricing is based, the license you're paying for a Simplivity license finally is based on the number of sockets. So how many CPUs that you have, 1 or 2 CPUs inside your node, but also the number of SSDs, so the capacity. So when you buy, you see the part numbers in here, you're not only gonna buy specifically the SSDs, but you're also gonna buy a license. And then it's up to you, or together with us, we will take a look of what is the most cost effective. Adding SSDs in your existing nodes, or just adding an additional node in your cluster. Yeah, so sometimes the storage expansion will be cheaper, but believe me, sometimes adding an additional node will be cheaper. Okay. As far as I know, I am not aware of customers in production, at least as long as I'm doing Simplivity, that did storage expansion. Adding nodes, yes, but the storage expansion, at least as far as I know, I can't remember that someone did this already. Okay, but hey, the competition supports this, so of course we need to support this as well. So know that this is now also an answer when your customer asks, hey, can we do storage expansion? The answer is yes. Are you gonna do it? Yeah, probably not, but the answer is yes. Also for Rfps, this could be an important one. Now, what you need to do, it's not that complicated, finally. It's an email that you need to send for those fan approvals. And then they will decide, they're going to take a look at the existing configuration, if it's supported, yes or no. This is just an approval from HPE support that says, yep, we will support it. Then we can quote it, and you can order it. It's not that it's that complicated. It doesn't have to take that long. But so this is the way of how it works. So we're going to submit that DSR. So it's a deal specific request that we're gonna follow. And in here, we can help you with that. There are some guidelines. I put the information in here just for your reference as well. So there's a green zone. A green zone is where we feel comfortable. Yep, this is where we're gonna do it. There's also a red zone where we want to stay away. For instance, if you have Simplivity on Gen 9 hardware, nah, we're not gonna do that anymore. Yes, we still have customers with Simplivity on Cisco, Dell, and Lenovo hardware. Yeah, yeah, they can do the storage expansion, but then it needs to be done by the OEM, of course. HPE is not going to add Lenovo SSDs in that Lenovo server, of course. So that's by the OEMs, and they have to support it, of course. Yeah. Also, you need at least 2 nodes in a cluster. I know that there are some clusters out there for disaster recovery reasons, DR sites with 1 node. Well, you should know that if we're going to do an expansion, yeah, with 1 node, you need downtime, you will lose data. So you try to avoid that, of course. So there are specific environments where we're gonna stay away, of course. Now, if you want to have more information about this, yeah, just call me and I will take a look with you if it is a good choice or not. Okay, these are the steps, by the way. So what is happening with a node? We want high availability. We're going to remove that node technically then from that cluster. Yeah. At that moment, everything will be running in this 3-node cluster. We remove that node. All the workloads are running on those 2 nodes. Then we're going to do the physical install of those additional drives in that 3rd node. We're going to redeploy that node using the deployment manager. We're going to join that node back into the cluster. And at that moment, the workload balancer in Simplivity will balance the workloads and all the data across those nodes again. So this is why it's not done in an hour. It takes some time. And this is for 1 node, and then you have to do it for the 2nd node, and then you have to do it for the 3rd node, of course. So it will take some time. And it's done by an engineer from HPE Point Next. Okay. Good. Hey, there you go. We arrived at the end of the presentation perfectly on time. This is the information that I wanted to share with you about the software and the hardware updates. If you need more information, here is our email address. Here is our phone number. You know where to find me, of course. And this gives me a few minutes to answer the Q&A questions. Like how much time? This is probably for the expansion. There is no time on there, but the thing is that you have to remove the node from the cluster. It goes quickly. Yeah. Then shut it down, put the disks in there, redeploy the node. How long does it take to redeploy a node or to deploy a node to add a node in a cluster with deployment manager? Takes an hour. Yeah, it takes 20 minutes, but you need a lot of information. It should work from the first time. So it takes already at least an hour, 2 hours. You bring it back into your cluster, and then that data needs to be balanced again. Now, if this is a cluster with 4 TB, it will go faster than a cluster with 50 terabytes that needs to be rebalanced. Okay, there are some CLI comments that needs to be done to see that the data is rebalanced. At that moment, once that is done, then probably that engineer will come back the next day to do the 2nd node, and then a 3rd day for the 3rd node. Yeah. If you have a customer with 2 terabyte, yeah, it will go much faster than if it's a 2 node with 2 terabyte of data. Maybe you can do it in 1 day, but it will take a few days. It will take some time. Yeah. And then the question you can ask yourself is it worth it? Because by the way, that customer with 2 terabyte, yeah, at that moment, if he has a problem with capacity, you did a bad sizing anyway. Yeah, you always have to oversize anyway. Another question, also use the Hdi sizing tool on a cluster under n-1. What if we have 2 nodes, which is the minimum and normally the same as 1 node alone? Hold on. Also use Hdi sizing tool on the cluster under n-1. So 1 node can fail. What if we have 2 nodes? Okay, you have 2 nodes, which is the minimum and normally the same as 1 node alone. I really don't get that question. Otherwise, call me. I know you have my direct phone number, so please, after this call me, because I'm not completely sure what you mean with this one. But anyway, if we have 2 nodes, And if this is about that storage expansion, what you're going to do is if we remove one node out of that cluster, as such, there's no problem, because if we did a good sizing, all your virtual machines, they can run on that one node. And it holds all that data, because with two nodes, both nodes, they have all the data. So if I remove one node from that cluster, well, at that moment, the only problem, not technical, but psychological problem, is that I'm running on one leg. At that moment, if something goes wrong with that node, I have a problem, right? So that procedure needs to be done quite quickly. Now, as such, redeploying that node, it takes less than an hour to put it back in the cluster, but then all that data needs to be replicated again. Yeah. And now if it's a 2-node cluster, at that moment, it won't take that long. Because, by the way, a 2-node cluster with 24 SSDs is, by the way, not a best practice anyway. Yeah. So I expect no issues there. The only problem, psychological problem that I see for that customer is that he's running on one node at that moment in time. So I feel more comfortable if I have a 3-node cluster. Okay, because I still have 2 nodes at that moment. Okay. Yes, that's it, and it answers my question. It's the last condition. Yes, okay, I see. Yes, very good. Oh, you mentioned, yeah, it's the last condition for the green zone versus the red zone. Hold on, I'll go back to that slide here. Indeed. Oh, yeah, I see. For that 4-node cluster, of course, yeah, then you go back to 3 nodes, but then we assume that those 3 nodes can run that complete workload, of course. Now, like I said, if we did the sizing together, you know that I always size for high availability. So I always want that 50% of the environment can fail. Okay. Of course, that's a choice that we make if we have a single site or a multi-site environment, of course. Yes. Okay, very good. Very good. I see some other questions. When will Simplivity offer native application-aware backups? Simplivity backups are crash consistent, not application consistent. If you want application consistent backups, you need to script VSS writers or use third-party backups like Veeam. Why do you need to script VSS writers? There is VSS integration within a Simplivity backup. When you create a Simplivity backup, you have that possibility to create an application consistent backup. The only thing that you need to do is then give the Windows admin account and the password, just like Veeam is doing, because Veeam is using the same VSS mechanism. And at least I tried it already. At least for me, it seemed to work. Otherwise, yeah, please let me know. At least I made it work and I didn't need to script anything. You need that VSS writer, I know, but the integration is there. Now, scripting VSS writers to allow VSS backup is complex. Restoring those backups are respectively VSS is even more complex. Now, hold on. This is not something that I plan to do. How can I show this? Hold on. No, I cannot share this inside the setup that I have now, because otherwise I need to connect to my demo environment. But if you go to your environment and you want to make a backup of a virtual machine, you have to give it a name and then the place. If it's a manual backup, you got to give it a name and then the place of which cluster where you want to make the backup. Then you hit next, and then you have that choice between crash consistent or application consistent. And if you select application consistent, you have the choice between a VMware snapshot or a VSS. And if you select VSS, you got to give the username and the password. And then if you hit OK, Simplivity will contact the VSS writer inside your Windows virtual machine. And then he will make that backup. I'm surprised about this. Well, please contact me. Call me. Also, you have my phone number. And after this webinar, I'm gonna connect to my own Simplivity environment, and I'm gonna try it out, because normally VSS integration, Simplivity, since a long time, Simplivity supports application-aware backups. Because yes, I have customers using this already in a successful way. Okay, so I'm going to take a look at it. I'm going to write it down, and we'll stay in contact. Yes, you're going to call me. Perfect. That's what I like, of course. So very good. Hey, and I see that we arrived at the bottom of the hour. So from my side, thank you very much, of course. If there are other questions, I will remain online. Thank you for your time. Stay safe with that pandemic that is still not gone, because I hope one day to have physical events. I want to talk with you in real person. It's a little bit easier, but as long as that virus is going around, yeah, we'll do it in this way, unfortunately, of course. So thank you very much. I hope it was useful. Stay tuned, by the way. So if you go to techdataevents.be, you will see that next week we have another update session. In 2 weeks, we have yet another update session. And I am looking at this moment to my agenda for more update sessions. So if there's something where I can help you with, or things that you need to know or that you want to know, please let me know. But like I said, March, April timeframe, there are more update sessions being planned as well, because of course HPE keeps on releasing new hardware and new software. And so I believe that 2022 with HPE will be a fun year for sure, if we take a look of all the things that are coming. So thank you very much. Have a great rest of the day, and hope to see you soon, virtually or even better in real life. Bye-bye.